So the same topic which we had covered yesterday called Pl-Sql functions. Pl-Sql function. So it says a function is same as a procedure. A function is the same as a procedure, except that it returns a value. Function will always returns a value. The main difference between procedure and function is a function must always return a value, and on the other hand, procedure may or may not return a value. So both are same, both procedure and function both are same. But the only difference between procedure and function is if we use procedure, we have to just use in and out parameter for initializing and getting the output. So using in and out parameter, sometimes we may get the output or we may not get the output. But using functions, even after using the in parameter and out parameter, we will definitely get the output because we will use a return statement. We will use return statement. So we are asking the compiler, no matter what, give me the output. Give me the output at any cost. So the main difference between procedure and function is a function must always return a value. And on the other hand, procedure may or may not return the value. Except this, all the discussions of the previous chapter, that is procedure, are true for functions too. So whatever we have read regarding procedure is same for functions also. Same, everything is same. So this is the same syntax again. Same syntax. So and we have one extra clause here, return statement. Return statement. And we have seen this yesterday, like function name. It specifies the name of the function. This specifies the name of the function or replace or replace. So here this option allows or replace options allows the modification of an existing function. Modification. We can change the value of the initialization. The optional parameter list, this one, parameter list contains name. So here we can give the name of the parameter or name of the functions. Mode, we can use mode operator here, and types of the parameters like in parameter, out parameter, or in out parameter. Therefore, return, it says in represents the value that will be passed from the outside. So in represents the value that will be passed from the outside. That means with the help of reference, we will pass the values. And out represents the parameter that will be used to return a value outside of the function. So we have discussed this previously. In parameter is used to initialize the values with the reference. Out parameter is used to get the output with the reference. So the function must contain a return statement. Whenever we are using a function, it must have a return statement. It must. If you don't use return statement, it will act like a procedure. Again, it may or may not give the output. So the return clause specifies the data type we are passing to return from the function. So return is must. We have to use return statement at must. Then the function body, this one here it says contains the executable part, the printing statements, dbms.output, give me the output for so and so. So this is the part where we will be getting the output, printing statements. Then as keyword is used instead of is keyword for creating a standalone function. So here we have is and as. So if I use is, we can change the values once it is declared. So for example, x in number, y in number, z out number. Value of a is 10, 20, b is 20, and c is a plus b or a minus b. So if I use is, I can change the values of a and b. But if I use as, I cannot change. I cannot change the values of a and b because this as is used for creating a standalone function. So the fixed one. So we'll see one example here. We were stuck here yesterday. So we will use a customers table. From here, we'll use some customers table. So let's start from customers. So we have got some customers table here. So this is the details of customers table. So from here, we will do some actions. We will perform some actions. So create or replace function. So here I'm having the table. From these table, what I want to do is I want to know the total customers of the function. So I want to create or replace function, and the function name is total customers. I want the total customers from the customers table, and I'm using return statement. So whatever the total customers we have from the customers table, return it in the form of data type, number data type. So this is the request. First we have to send the request, then we will get the output. So this I'll send the request first. Create or
And
replace
we will get
function.
out.
Create or replace function. What I want the total count of the customers. Total customers. I want the total customers, and I want to return it in the form of number. Just count it and give me the output in the form of number data type, where I want the total customers. The data type is 2, and here I have given 0. So I want to select the count of star. So we know that count of star is nothing but it is used to find the number of values. Count of star is used to find the number of values into total. I want the count in total from the customers table, and finally return the total. This is one basic one. This is not so I have just sent the request. This is the request I have to send. I have sent the request. So now we have to call it. What is calling? We have to print it. So what I do, while creating a function, you give a definition. So what is definition? We have to specify of what that function has to do. So in SQL we have seen function. What is function? It is a block of code or list of instructions which will perform a specified task, a defined task, a particular task. So I'll ask the compiler, do this one, and it does. So based on my command, the compiler will perform some action. In the same here also same, calling a function that what we will call something, we will ask the compiler do this one, and it has to do that. So when creating a function, you give the definition. We have to define first what to do the compiler. Well, we have to define the compiler what has to do, or specify what the function has to do. For example, ask the compiler, I want maximum salary, I want second maximum salary, I want third maximum salary, I want fifth minimum salary, I want count of salary, total salary, I want so and so, so and so. I'll be asking a number of commands, a number of definition. I'll be giving some definition. I'll be specifying the compiler to do all these things. And based on my command, I mean, based on the user command, the function will work. The function has to work. So to use a function, you will have to call that function to perform the defined task. So now I have asked the compiler to do this one. Now again, I have to call it. So I have asked the compiler to do this one. Now I have to check whether the compiler is performing or not. So to use a function, you will have to call that function to perform the defined task. So this is a task which we have defined. Now we have to check whether the compiler is working on this or not. So we'll see how to do this one. So a called function performs the defined task, and then it returns statement is executed. I'll repeat. A called function performs the defined task. So whatever the task we have given, whatever the task we have defined, based on the task, the compiler will perform. And when its return statement is executed, it will only work when this return statement is executed. So we have to use return at any cost while we are using function. So to call a function, you simply need to pass a required parameters. Required parameters are nothing but required values. Proper input should be given along with the function name, and if the function returns a value or not. Along with the name, one second. So to call a function, to get the output, we simply need to pass the required parameters. Required parameters are nothing but the valid inputs. Valid input should be given along with the name of the function. The name of the function. So this is the name of the function. And if that function returns a value or not, it should return the values. So now what I'll do, I'll describe. So declare begin and end. This is a function named C with number data type of size 2, where C should be total customers. I want the count of total customers into the value of C, into the function named C. So give me the output. This is a printing section. Give me the output for total customers of the table, from customers table, into the value of C. So this is a variable, this is a function named C with a number data type. And there is no initialization for C. There is no value for C. And the value of C should be total customers. Total customer. So here I have given total customers in the form of number data type. So count all the customers numbers and put those number into the value of C. So we'll see this. So total number of customers is 6. Total number of customers is 6. We'll see. Yes. Total number of customers 6. So they got this is some basic one, just to know how to like send the request and how to call that how to send the request and how to call the program.
Sir, any other option to call function, sir?
So this is the only way.
Is only okay.
So the output is 6. See, we have procedure, we have function, we have triggers. Procedure is a basic one. Function is a little advanced to function is little advanced to procedure, and triggers is advanced to both procedure and function, which means we will not use functions, nor we will not use procedures, but we will use triggers because it is advanced to so trigger is advanced to procedure and function, which means we can still use which one procedure. We can use functions also, but triggers is a combination of procedure and function both. So it's better to use triggers only. But if you want to use triggers, you should know how this procedure will work and how this function will work. So we'll see one by one. So this is the output we have got. Total number of customers is 6. And the second example says the function that computes and returns the maximum of two values. Maximum of two values. The same one which we have seen yesterday. Function name A, B, C. Number data type without initialization. Without initialization. And here function, I want to find the maximum of X in number, Y in number. And here in the procedure, we have given Z out number. So in the last class, we have seen Z out number. But here, we will not use out. We will not use out. We will just use in, but we will use return statement. Instead of out, we will use return statement. Because if I use Z out number, Z as out number, it won't be called as function. It will be called as a procedure. But we know that. So in represents the value that will be passed from the outside, from the reference. So in represents the values that will be passed from the reference. So we have ABC, but we will use the reference A as X, B as Y, and C as Z. And out represents the parameter that will be passed to return a value. So which means we are using here return statement, which will be used on the basis of not on the basis of behalf of on behalf of out parameter. We will use return statement. Out parameter we will use return statement.
Out parameter only used in procedure only.
Yes, out parameter is used only in procedure. In case if I use out parameter here, it is procedure, which means we cannot use return
Instead of use return.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
If I'm using out parameter, I should not mention return.
Okay.
Because if I mention out, it is not a function, it is a procedure. But if I remove this out parameter, we have to use return so that we'll get the output definitely. So,
Okay.
yes. So function, find the maximum of x in number, y in number. So whatever the maximum value we have from x and y, return it in the form of number to z. So return the number to z. The same condition again. If, because we have to find the maximum. If x is maximum than y, then the value of z should be x. The maximum value should be the value of x. Else, z should be y. So I want the maximum of x in number, y in number to z value. So I have used if condition. Statement 1, statement 2. If first condition is not satisfied, then the else part will work. Second statement is checked. So the one which is satisfied, that will be the value of z. So I have given return the maximum of x and y to z. So now I'll initialize the value of a as 128, any number. So value of a is 128 and b is 146. I want the maximum of, so c should be the value of maximum of a and b. C should be the value of maximum of a and b. So get me the output. I'll ask the compiler, give me the output for maximum of 128 and 146 should be the value of c. So which one is the maximum? B is the maximum, that is y is the maximum. 146 is maximum. So we have to get 146. So maximum of 128 and 146 is 146. The value of C is 146. If I make it 228 instead of 128, so make it 228. So the maximum of 228 and 146 is 228. So the value of C is A. Here the value of C is A because maximum of A and B. A value is 228 and B value is 146. So maximum of A and B is A. So the value of C will be A only. If I make it 128, now the value of A is 128 and B is 146, which is greater. So the value of C will be the maximum 146. Same as the previous one, but here we just not we did not use Z parameter. Z in out parameter. Sorry, Z out number. We have just given x in number, y in number, z out number. So we have not used out parameter. Instead of out parameter, we are just using return statement. So this is the maximum of 146. Same example again, variable function name ABC, number data type. I want to find the minimum one. Minimum one. So x in number, y in number. We are using in to initialize the values with the reference. We know that in parameter is used to initialize the values with the reference. So x in number, y in number, return the number to z. If x is less than y, because we are looking for minimum. So in this example, we were looking for maximum. So I have used greater than symbol. And here we are looking for minimum. So I'll use less than symbol. If x is less than y, then the value of z should be x. Else, the value of z should be y. So whatever the minimum of x and y we have, return it to z. So return the minimum of x and y to z. So value of a is 88 and b is 66. So the minimum of a and b is minimum, it is 66. So minimum of 88 and 66 is 66. So the value of c or z should be 66. The minimum of 88 and 66 is 66. And if I change this to 48, minimum of 48 and 66. So minimum is 48. The value of C is A. So we have to find minimum of A and B, and that should be the value of C. So this is, and we have one more example. Create a function. So create or replace function. Function name is adder. Function name is adder, where I want to add. This is the reference. As we have seen x in number, y in number. So instead of x, we are giving n1. n1 in number, n2 in number. So I repeat. Create or replace a function. This is a function name adder. I want the addition. I want to make an addition where n1 is n1 is a reference with in parameter and n2 is a reference with in parameter. So return the number. So add, that means add n1 and n2 and return it to n3. So this is the function name again. Function name n1, n2, n3. And we are just initializing the values for n1 and n2, but we are not initializing any value to n3. But the value of n3 should be addition of n1 and n2. Addition of n1 and n2. So return 2, this one n3 with a number data type of size 6. So where n3 value should be n1 plus n2. So whatever the addition of n1 and n2 we will get, that should be returned to n3. That should be the value of n3. So what I'll do, I'll send the request first. I'll send the request. After sending the request, I'll call it. How I'll call it? Declare begin end. Function name n3 with a number data type of size 6 and n3 should be adder of 24 and 26. So n1 value is 24 and n2 value is 26. So add these two, whatever the value we will get, that should be the value of n3. That should be the value of n3. What is 50? I can change this to 124, 126. It will be 250. So adder of a plus b. Adder of a plus b, 150. So this is one example. So this is function, which was similar to procedure, but we will use maximum triggers. We will use maximum triggers. We will not use procedure. No, we won't use functions. In case of it is required, we will use it. If it is not required, we won't use functions or triggers. The functions or function, this one procedure, but we will be using triggers must. But still, you should know this one also. So we'll see this one important topic, something called cursors. This is very much important. Cursor. So cursors. This is very important based on interviews also. So most of the questions will be asked from this topic only. Cursors. So we'll see what is cursor. So cursors. So cursors, when a PL-SQL statement is processed, Oracle creates a memory area known as the context area for processing an SQL statement. I'll repeat. So when a PL-SQL statement is processed, when a PL-SQL statement is processed, Oracle creates a memory area which is known as a context area for processing PL-SQL statement, which means consider I'm having a space. consider I'm having a table. I'm having a table which is empty, which is completely empty. So what I'll do, as we know that I'm having enough space on my table, I'll keep my laptop, I'll keep my mouse, mobile charger, water bottle, books, so many things I'll keep on this place just because I'm having some enough space. So why I'm keeping all these stuffs in my on my table, so that whenever I want, easily I can get them directly from the table. In the same way, when a PLSQL statement is processed, that means, for example, I want welcome. I want to print something called hi, hello, or hello world. I want to print hello world. Hello, hello world. I want to print this one. So what I'll do, I'll store this value into, I store this value into a variable name called something like night varchar of size 10. Varchar of size 10. So I want to store this value called hello. So as soon as as soon as I process this one, Oracle creates a memory area. That means for this value, Oracle creates a space. So that means as soon as I create this one, this hello world will be stored into the Oracle database. For what? Because I want to process this again. I want to retrieve this one again. If I want to retrieve this, I don't have this value in the database. I have to first save it, then I have to recall it. So when an SQL statement is processed, so this is a statement I'm trying to process. Oracle creates a memory area. That means for this value, Oracle creates some space to store this value. That space is known as context area. That space is known as context area. For what? For processing and PLSQL statement, processing an SQL statement. So this is a space I'm having. Unable to open this paint. So whichever the process, or whichever the statement we are trying to process, for that particular statement, Oracle will create some space. It will be stored automatically. So same as like we have a mobile. We have some enough space like 128 GB or 256 GB storage. So we can download as many data as we can. And all those data are stored in one place, and that place is called as storage. And the storage place where we store all these things are called as context area. For what? For processing an SQL statement, which means consider we will download some songs or we will download some documents. So what I'll do, I'll open file manager. We will be having different folders like documents, audios, this one APK, apps, photos, videos. So different photos we will be having. I want to process one statement. What I want to process, I want to retrieve a document. So what I'll do, I'll click on document folder where I can access to all the documents which we are stored in the database. If I want any photos, I'll click on photo where I can access all the photos of the all the photos from the database. In the same way, whichever the values we are trying to process in this PLSQL statement, that values will also be stored in the database. And that database, which creates some space or which creates a memory area, that memory area is known as context area. It is a place from where we have to get all the SQL statements for processing in SQL statements, which contains all the information needed for processing the SQL statement. So whatever the SQL statement we have to process, we want to process. If we want to process all those things from the context area only, we have to get it. We have to get it because that's where we have stored all the values. So what is a cursor? A cursor is a pointer to this context area. A cursor is a pointer to this context area, which means consider this is the context area. This entire place is a from here. Yeah, this one. So from here to here, consider it is a context area. So cursor, what I want to do, cursor is a pointer to this context area. Pointer. What is a pointer? We have to search. We have to search for something, and from that we have to retrieve. For example, from these context area, I want to select referred. I want to search for referred. So what I'll do? So this is a pointer. I'll search for referred. It's not referred. I'll be searching. I'll be searching. I'll not get. I'll not get. I'll get it here. Referred. So this is a pointer. I'm trying to point that particular area to retrieve it. In the same way, cursor is a pointer to this context area so that we can select the value or the data which we want from that context area by searching. In the same way, Pl-Sql controls the context area through the cursor. See, now I'm trying to mark on this third line. So this is a line which I want to mark. So I'm pointing to this particular line. I'm not bothering about the first one, second one, or the remaining three. I'm just particularly marking on this third line. So third line, 1 second. So Pl-Sql controls the context area through the cursor. So this is a place. This is a place which is called as context area, and we can control this context area through the cursor. What is cursor? A pointer. It is a pointer. So if I want to select anyone, for example, I want to search for access. I want to retrieve access. I'll search for access in this context area. I'll find somewhere. Yes, here it is accessed. So I'm pointing to that particular area. So I'll retrieve that one. It's like a shopping mall. You will be searching for n number of goods, and the one which you want, that you will choose. That you will choose, and you'll put it in the basket. So that basket is mall is or that shopping mall is a context area, and you are the one who are the pointer. So you'll be searching for the racks, and you'll get what you want. In the same way, here the cursor is a pointer to that context area. So to control that context area, we can use cursors. So a cursor holds the rows. The cursor holds the rows one or more returned by a SQL statement, which means, I repeat, a cursor holds the rows, one or more rows, returned by a SQL statement, which means a cursor contains information of the select statement and the rows of the data accessed by the cursor set. It's like saying the simple one. So I want to select employee name, salary, and what else? Department number or job, comma, hire date from EMP table. So from the employee table, I'm trying to retrieve employee name, salary, job, and hire date, which means either I can choose one column. So if I use this one, I get one record, or I can choose many records, one or more. Minimum one I can choose because I'm pointing from this employee table. I'm trying to point employee name first, so I'll get the records from employee name from this employee table. If I want salary, job, and hire date, any number of columns, I can mention all the, because I'm pointing this one from, I'm having different column names, and from those different column names, I'm just mentioning the first four. I'm just mentioning these four. So I'll get the output only based on these four data. So a cursor holds the rows. It holds the rows. That means whatever the number of values we want to select, those number of values can be mentioned. Those number of values can be selected, either one value or more value, returned by a SQL statement. So if you want to retrieve any of those data, that should be done with the help of SQL statement itself, which means a cursor contains information. A cursor contains information on a select statement. That means whatever the values we have to select from that context area, with the help of SQL statements, we have to get the information. So what I'll do, select ename, select salary, select job, hire date, so on, so on, so, and the rows of the data accessed by the cursor set. So this is the rows of the data where I'm trying to get from employee table, and I'll get the details of those particular table. That is from employee table, I'll get these details. So a cursor is used to refer to a program to fetch and process the rows written by a SQL statement. Simply says, cursor simply says, it is used to refer to a program. That means if we want to retrieve any data, to get those data, we have to write the code. That means we have to write it in the form of program using SQL statements. I'll repeat again, cursor is nothing but it is a pointer to the context area, which we have to retrieve the data, either one data or more data. But to retrieve those data, we have to use the cursors in the form of program, using select statement. That means using SQL statement. So using SQL statement, we have to define what are the number of rows or records we want to retrieve. So a cursor is used to refer to a program. So in the form of program, we have to refer to fetch the record and process the rows written by a SQL statement. Whatever the number of rows we want to retrieve, that should be written in the form of program using SQL statements once at a time. Once at a time. At a time, we can retrieve a number of data. So we can retrieve those data in two ways, using implicit cursors and explicit cursors. So they might ask a question, what are the types of cursors? What are the types of cursors? So you could answer implicit cursors or explicit cursors. Again, they'll ask what is implicit and what is explicit. Give me one example. What is implicit? What is explicit? Give me one example for implicit or example for explicit. So we'll see what is implicit cursor. It says implicit cursors are automatically created by Oracle whenever an SQL statement is executed. Implicit cursor. So implicit cursors are automatically created by Oracle whenever an SQL statement is executed. For example, so here what I'll do, select star from EMP. So I have got the employee table. Have got the employee table. So implicit cursors are automatically created. This is a record. This is the employee table's record, which is already created. So from here, what I'll do, I'll ask the compiler, select ename, sal from EMP. Select ename, sal from EMP. So I have got ename column and salary column. So these are the records which are already there in the database. Implicit, internally, inbuilt data. So implicit cursors are nothing but to retrieve the data from already existing data, which are already the data which are stored in the database. From that, we are trying to retrieve it. So that is implicit, automatically saved, already saved, inbuilt data. From that inbuilt data, we will try to retrieve the data. Same as just we have seen now. We had employee table. From that employee table, we are trying to retrieve ename and salary. So we have got ename and salary. Therefore, implicit cursors are automatically created by Oracle whenever an SQL statement is executed. So this is a SQL statement which we are trying to execute where I want employee name and salary. Employee name and salary. This is the statement I'm trying to perform on implicit cursor. That means implicit cursor nothing but there should be some data present already. Inbuilt data. There should be some inbuilt data. From that inbuilt data, I'm trying to get the output. So that is implicit cursor. So when there is no explicit cursor for the statement, programmers cannot control the implicit cursors and the information in it. From the first, implicit cursor says these are automatically created by Oracle. Implicit cursors are nothing but the records which are already present. The records which are already present. So this is the record which is already present. So from these records, we are trying to get some output where I want salary, where I want job, hire date, any of the column. So we are trying to retrieve the data which are already present. So which is called as implicit cursors. And the second line says, when there is no explicit cursor for the statement, programmers cannot control the implicit cursors and the information in it. Which means what I'll do, I'll ask the compiler, select phone number column from EMP. Phone number column from EMP. It says invalid identifier because I'm trying to give the data which is not there in the database, which is called as explicit. What is explicit? User defined. If it is implicit, already existing. If it is explicit, externally we are trying to retrieve the data which is not there in the database. That means we don't have any control over the implicit data because I don't have phone number column from this employee table. So phone number is a explicit cursor. It acts like a explicit cursor because I'm defining as on my own. I'm defining on my own, which I don't have control to get the output. So that's what it says when there is no explicit cursor for the statement. So this is a statement and I'm giving like phone number, which is not there in the database, So programmers cannot control the implicit cursors and the information in it. So I'm having an employee table and I'm having many records or information in from the employee table, but I cannot control them. I cannot control the implicit cursors because I don't have any records from phone. I don't have any records from employee table, which calls like phone number or any other Gmail address, customer ID, for this one mail address. We don't have these columns in the employee table. So we cannot control implicit cursors. So these implicit cursors are created by default. Implicit cursors are nothing but created by default to process the SQL statement when DML statements are executed. So these implicit cursors are created by default. Implicit cursors are nothing but the records or the information which are already created by default. And to process the SQL, to process the statements when DML statements are executed. That means the records which are already there in this database, we can perform only DML operations using implicit cursor. Once again, I'll repeat. Select star EMP. So here I'm having one employee table. So I'm having employee table. This is the records from implicit cursors, the record which are already created automatically or created by default. So I can only perform DML operations using implicit cursors. See here, these implicit cursors are created by default, and to process the statements when DML statements are executed. That means if I want to perform anything, if I want to like execute any statements from these implicit cursors, I can only execute DML operations. DML operations like insert, update, and delete. That means from these inbuilt cursors, we can only perform DML operations where I can insert some records or update some records or delete any records. Only DML operations can be performed using implicit cursors. So for insert operations, the cursor holds the data that needs to be inserted. So we know that insert operations, insert statement. We know that insert is nothing but it is used to insert the data or records into the table. Insert says it is used to insert the records or data into the table. Update says update the data or records from the table. Delete says delete the data or records from the table, individual table. So for insert operations, the cursor holds the data that needs to be inserted. So if I'm using insert operation, if I'm using insert statement, it holds the data that needs to be inserted. If I'm using update and delete, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected. I'll repeat again. For insert operations, the records, or sorry, the cursors holds the data that needs to be inserted. So I'm using insert statement. If I'm using insert statement, which means the insert operation holds the data that needs to be inserted in the current table, particular table. For update and delete, operations, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected, which means consider I'm trying to update this table, employee table. I'm trying to update this employee table where I want to change the name of the employee whose ID number is 7839, or King, whose name is King. I want to change the name of the employee King to Queen. I want to change the name to Queen. So what I'll do, I'll use a statement like update the table, employee table from EMP where E name is King. Sorry, where E name is King, and I want to change this to Queen. So just because I'm updating some record from these employee table, we just have to check, is it affecting or not? I'll repeat. For update and delete operations, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected. The rows that would be affected, which means if I change the name of this employee King, I want to change his name King to Queen. I want to change this to Queen. So just because I'm updating this name, we should also, the cursor identifies whether any other rows are affected or not. So it's like, if I go with any practical example, so during this COVID, we know we have gone through this one. If somebody sneezes and everyone will be shocked, everyone will be like scared. So he might be having COVID. So even I would have got affected. So if somebody like coughs, so they'll get scared. Even I would have got affected. So in the same way, just because one data is updating, the cursor should identify any other rows or any other datas are affected or not. So what is affecting? Just because I'm changing just because I'm changing this, just because I'm updating this name to Queen, these Scott and Turner or any other column might affect it, which means even their name might also change. Just because I'm updating this column, this row, the surrounding columns may also get affected. That means I'll be trying to change the name of the King to Queen, but sometimes the nearby values will also be updating like Queen only. So this will also be updated as Queen. This will be also updated as Queen. This will be also updated as Queen. And sometimes entire column will be updated as Queen only. Sometimes entire column will be updated as Queen only. I just tried to change the name of this one to Queen, only the name of King to Queen, but sometimes the entire column will be changed to Queen only, which means we have tried to change the name of one employee, but the entire column is changed. So that's what we have written. For update and delete operations, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected. What are the number of rows that would be affected? Just because updating this one, or just because deleting this one. Update and delete state, for update and delete operations, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected. If I update this one, the remaining rows will be affected, may be affected. If I delete this one, the remaining rows may be affected. So just because I'm trying to update this record or delete this record, we have to check whether any other records are affecting or any other values are affecting or not. And what are the number of rows that are affecting? We have to find it. So for update and delete operations, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected. So in Pl-Sql, you can refer to the most recent implicit cursors as a SQL cursor, which always has attributes such as found, is open, not found, and row count. Attribute found, attribute is open, attribute not found, attribute row count. So I'll explain this last two lines once again. For update and delete operations, the cursor identifies the rows that would be affected. So what I'll do, I'll try to update this name of the employee, Miller. I'll update the name of the employee, Miller, to something called Killer. So I just want to change the name of the Miller to Killer, But just because I'm updating this name, the remaining rows will also be affected. Ford might be affected, James might be affected, Adams also might be affected. So if any one of the column is also affected, I want to find what are the number of rows are affected just because I have changed the name, just because I have updated the name of the miller to something called killer. I want to know this. I want to find what are the number of rows affected, or what are the number of rows that are affected just because I'm deleting this one. So we can find those affected rows with the help of the most recent implicit cursors as a SQL cursor, which always has the attributes such as attribute found, attribute is open, attribute not found, attribute row count. So these are the four ways where we can try to find the where we can use as an implicit cursor for update and delete only, not for insert, for update and delete. So we'll see with the example. So example, when you execute the Pl-Sql, when you execute the SQL statement, that is DMS statement like insert, update, and delete, then the cursor attribute tells whether any rows are affected and how many rows have been affected. So if I insert any record, I'll try to insert one record, but just because I'm inserting one record, the remaining rows will be affected. The surrounding data might be affected. Or if I'm updating any records, the surrounding data might be affected. Or if I'm deleting any records, the surrounding data will also be affected. So when you execute the SQL statement, that is DML statement, like insert, update, and delete, the cursor attribute tells. So these cursor attribute tells, it says this found, open, not found, row count. These cursor attribute tells whether any rows are affected and how many rows are affected. Just because I'm inserting, how many rows are affected. Just because I'm updating and deleting, how many rows are affected. And we'll see how to find all those things. So the following types provides the description of the most used attributes. These are the most used attributes, and any SQL cursor attribute will be accessed as SQL attribute name as shown below. I'll repeat. The following types provides the description of the most used attributes. So this is the most used attributes, and we have the description for this. What is found, what is open, what is not found, what is dropout. We will use all those things. And any SQL attribute will be accessed as SQL attribute name. SQL attribute name as shown below. We'll see what. So percentile or attribute found. Attribute found says returns true. Found, attribute found, returns true if an insert, update, or delete statement affected one or more rows. One or more rows, which means if I insert any records, if I update any records, or if I delete any records, just because I'm inserting or updating or deleting any of the records, the remaining records may be affected. So if it is affected, by using this attribute found, we can rectify what are the number of rows that are affected. Just because I'm inserting, how many numbers are affected? How many rows are affected? Just because I'm updating, how many rows are affected? Just because I'm deleting, how many rows are affected? So we can find the affected rows using found, attribute found. Therefore, not found, attribute not found. So it is logical opposite to found. Logical opposite to found, which means it returns true if an insert, update, or delete statement affected no rows. Affected no rows. So we will be inserting the record or updating the record or deleting the record, and I'll ask the compiler, just check whether any rows are affected or not. It says no if none of the records are affected. So it returns true, no rows affected. That means it was, so that means the table is safe. If it is found, again we have to change the records which are updated. From the first we have to change. So not found says it is a logical opposite to found. It returns true if an insert, update, delete statement affected, no rows. If none of the rows are affected, then it says no rows are affected, which means table is safe. So is open. First attribute is open. It says always returns false for implicit cursors. Always returns false for implicit cursors because Oracle closes the SQL cursor automatically after executing its associated SQL statement. I'll repeat, is open. Attribute is open will always returns false. That means it will not give the output because it will not give the output for implicit cursor because Oracle closes the SQL cursor automatically after executing its associate SQL statement. Associate, which means, for example, I'm using employee table. From these employee table, it is implicit cursor because the records are already present in this one. So employee table, implicit cursor. So what I'll do, I'll ask the compiler, select ename, comma, salary. Select ename, comma, salary from EMP. So what it does, I'll get the output as employee name, all the list of the employee name, and I'll get the entire salary. So next statement, what I'll do, select job, comma, hire date. Job, comma, hire date from EMP. And I'll get the output as no rows selected. I'll not get the output because once any SQL statement is executed, the compiler will give the output and it will close the doors. It will close the cursor. It will not open. It's like, see, we'll be in the house and some delivery boy comes and either he'll knock the door or he'll use the calling bell. So as soon as he use the calling bell, or as soon as he knock the door, we will open, we will take the parcel, we will pay him and he will return. So again, next time again he should come. Once I receive my parcel, I'll not open my door. I'll not open my door entire day. I'll close it because I don't have any use of that. Somebody will come and somebody will give or something. I'll close it because my job is done. Somebody had come, he was knocking the door or he was knocking the bell. I just opened the door. I have took the parcel and I have just closed the door. That's it. Again, if if somebody wants to contact me, they have to knock the door first. So is open, like it's also same. Always returns false for implicit cursors because Oracle closes the cursor. Oracle closes the SQL cursors automatically after executing its associated SQL statement. Once any SQL statement is executed, after it executed, the compiler will close the door. It will close the door. So to print the second statement. So for the first statement, I have got the output, ename column, salary column. For the second statement, I want job and hire date, but I'll not get the output. I'll not get the output. I have to use a attribute is open. That means I have to ask the compiler, open the door. I want some other data. I want some other data like job and hire date. So I'll get the job and hire date. Again, it will close the door. If I want something else, again I have to use is open. So I have to use open to open the cursor and to retrieve the SQL statement, to retrieve the data using SQL statement. So that is open. Therefore, attribute row count. Attribute row count. So it says returns the number of rows affected by insert, update, or delete statement. I'll repeat. Attribute row count. Attribute row count. It returns the number of rows affected by an insert, update, or delete statement. So if I'm inserting any record or deleting any record or updating any record, I'll ask the compiler, just count the rows. Count the rows that are affected. Just because I'm inserting, updating, or deleting, just count the number of rows affected. So it will give us the output like you have inserted one record, and just because you have inserted, two rows are affected. Just because of deleting, 3 rows are affected. Just because of deleting, one row is affecting. So that row will be displayed, and we have to change the row once again. For majority, it won't happen, but we'll see how to do it. So example one, there is one customer. We have the table, customers table. So let's start from UMP. Sorry, so let's start from customers table.
Sir, one doubt, sir.
Yes.
Found and row count is a different, sir, or same, sir?
Found.
Found and row count.
C returns true if an insert, update, or delete statement affected one or more rows.
It
So
show.
affected one or more rows.
Okay, sir.
So it gives both are same actually. Found. What is found? It says one row is affected, 2 rows are affected, 3 rows are affected. So count number of rows, both are same. Either found. See, this can be just found. We'll just get 6 rows. But sorry. Here we will just get the count. 6 rows are affected. But here we will get the rows that are affected directly. Row number. So if it is 6 rows, for example, 3 rows are affected. 3 rows are affected. It will display like e-name is affected, salary is affected, like job is affected. But here it will just says 3 rows are affected. 3 rows are 3 rows are affected.
Like e-name Smith, King.
Yeah.
Show exactly.
Here it will display what are the number of rows that are affected, and here it will just count. 3 rows are affected. Both are same. Found and row count are both are same.
Okay.
So we'll see one by one. So one example from the customers table. Let us check any rows are affected or not. So customers table. This is table. This is customers table. So from this one, we'll check whether any rows are affected or not. So the following program will update the table and increase the salary of each customer by 500 rupees, and use the SQL row count attribute to determine the number of rows affected. So now we will try to update the salary column. We will try to update the salary column, and it will display whether any rows are affected or not. So we have this salary. Something like Ramesh, Khilan, Kaushik, Chaitali, Hardik, Komal. These are some different age, their address, and their salary. 2,000, 1,500, again 2,000, 6,500, 8,500, 4,500. Now we will update the salary column. So what I'll do, the same syntax, declare begin, end. And here, I want to know the total rows that are affected. I'm updating the salary column, and I want to know the number of rows affected. So update customers table, where I want to set salary, whatever the existing salary they have, plus 500. I'm updating the salary column to the existing salary plus 500. So if SQL not found, so I'm updating the salary column. So I'm updating the salary column with 500 rupees extra. After updating the salary column, if all the rows are affected, we'll see what happens. And if none of the rows are affected, let's see what happens. So I'm updating the salary column with 500 rupees extra. If SQL attribute not found, that means if no rows are affected, then give me the output as no rows, no customers are selected. That means I'm updating the salary column, the entire salary column. If it is not updated, if none of the records are updated, I want the output as no customers are selected. If it is updated, I want to know the number of records. That means I want to know the total rows, the number of rows that are affected. That means the number of rows that are updated. I'll repeat. We are trying to update this customers table by setting the salary, the existing salary. They have some existing salary. So this is their existing salary. Some 2,000, 1,500 up to 4,500. Now I want to update the salary column with 500 rupees more. So what I'll do, I'll update the existing salary plus 500. So whatever the existing salary they have, to that salary add 500 rupees extra. So it should update all the records. That means here we should get 2,500, 2,000, 2,500, 7,000, 9,000, and 5,000. we should get the updated salary. That means all the this entire rows should be updated. All the rows should be affected. If it is affected, we should know what are the number of rows that are affected. If it is not affected, that means if it is not updated any of the column, any of the rows, then give me the output as no customers selected. So we'll see what happens. So I'll print it. 6 customers selected. That means 6 datas are updated. So total rows. Count total rows. That means affected rows. I'm updating the salary column, 500 rupees extra, and I want to check whether the records are updated or not, whether the records are affected or not. So if it is affected, I want the total count, or I want the total rows, the number of rows that are affected, and customers selected. So 6 customers are selected. That means 6 records are updated. Let us see what is the recorded. We were trying to update the salary. So it was 2000 and it is 2500. It was 1500. Now it is 2000, 2500, 6500 become 7000, 8500 become 9000, and 4500 become 5000. That means all the rows are affected. All the rows are affected. So this is how we will update the record using cursors, implicit cursors. So we have updated one salary column using implicit cursor. We don't do this, but still we should know. So if no rows are affected, so we have seen one example. If rows are affected, so now 6 rows are affected. As we have seen, 6 rows are affected. Let us see if none. If what we will get if no records are updated. So if no rows are affected, we'll see what happens. So what I'll do, declare begin end. I want the total number of rows where I want to delete from customers. So I want to delete where salary is 8,000. Where I want to delete salary is 8,000. Yes. So I'm not doing this one. So I have commented this one because if I remove this one, the salary will be again updated. So I'm commenting this one, which means this line is not important because I'm not updating the salary. I'm deleting the records from the customers. So delete from customers table where salary is 8,000. Salary is 8,000. So if any records are deleted, then give me the output as these many records are deleted. 1 record, 2 record, 3 records are deleted. If no records are deleted, then give me like no customer selected. So what will be the output for this one? Control C. For this one, 1 second, I'll show. What will be the output for this one? I want to delete from the customers table where salary is 8,000. So whoever has salary 8,000, I want to delete their records. What will be the output?
No customer selected.
Yes, because there is no person or no customer
Salary 8,000.
who's getting salary 8,000. But if I make it like 2,500, 3,000, 2,500, 2,000, the values which are existing will get like 1 row deleted. 1 row deleted. But here, I just want to check that no rows are affected. So this is example for rows are affecting. So we have got 6 rows are affected. 6 rows are affected. And this is for no rows are affected. Even though I'm performing some action here, operation here, no rows are affected. So it is no customer selected. No customer selected. So this is implicit cursor. That means to perform the operations based on the implicit records, inbuilt records, the default records from the table or the database, we can perform implicit cursors like DDL, DML, DML operations like insert, update, and delete. I'll repeat, using cursors, that is to implicit cursors, we can only perform DML operations like insert, update, and delete. So let us see what is explicit cursor. Explicit cursor. It says explicit cursors are user defined or programmer defined cursors. That means based on our requirement, we can do whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. Which means, see, explicit cursor are user defined cursors or user defined cursors or programmer defined cursors for gaining more control over the context area. More control over the context area. For example, consider yeah. So consider we don't have a bike. We don't have a bike, and we will use any friend's bike. We'll use any friend's bike. So I don't have control on this bike. On this bike, I can just use it. I cannot do nothing except using that. I cannot do nothing because I don't have control over this one because it is implicit. It's not ours. It's somebody else's. But if we have our own bike, if we have our own bike, own, we will be having the control, the complete control on our own bike. I can do whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. No need to ask anybody's permission. I can use on my own. No need to ask somebody's permission or no need to think about somebody else's opinion. No, I can use on my own because it's my bike. If it is friend's bike, it is implicit. It's not us. It is in somebody else, and this one is explicit. It is my own. So user defined cursors. Programmer, we are the one who will be riding this bike as required, based on the requirement, we will use it because we will be having the more control. For gaining more control over the context area, we have to use explicit. So we know that if it is implicit, the records which we have in the database, based on that record, we have to perform the action, we have to perform the statements. But we don't have the control over the implicit cursors. We don't have control because if the data which are there in the database, based on the data, we have to write the statements. But if it is explicit, we will be having the control over the implicit cursor also. We will be having control. So explicit cursors are user-defined cursors or programmer-defined cursors for gaining more control over the context area. For gaining more control over the context area. Once again. So, and explicit cursor should be defined in the declaration section of the Pl-Sql block. So, if it is explicit cursor, we have to define it in the declaration section, saying that it is explicit cursor. I'll repeat, an explicit cursor should be defined in the declaration section of the Pl-Sql block. It is created on a select statement which returns more than one row. Same as the previous one. To return the data from the database using select statement, we have to get the output. But if it was implicit, if the compiler gives the output, we can take. If it doesn't give the output, we cannot do nothing. We have to just say, no, okay, fine. But if it is explicit, even if the compiler says, no, I don't have the data, we can store the data manually. And again, I'll ask the compiler, now I have saved the data, you give me the data. So explicit cursors are programmer defined. Based on our requirement, we can perform anything. And based on our requirement, compiler will work. But we can have the control over the implicit cursor also. That means the data which are there in this database, to that data also, we can have the control. But we have to declare it first. We have to declare in the declaration section saying that explicit cursor. This is explicit cursor, which means it is user defined cursors. I am defining my own statements. So implicit cursor, you don't interfere. Don't interfere. So we'll have the control over the implicit cursor. You don't do anything. It is explicit cursor. So we'll see an example here, which means, one second. So we know that we will be having declare begin and end. We are having declare begin and end. So if you perform any implicit cursors, same syntax. So we have to return the data based on the based on the implicit cursors, the data which are already there in the database. Based on it, we have to get the output. If I want salary, I'll get it. E-name, I'll get it. Customer ID, I'll get it. Customer address, I'll get it. Customer's mail ID, I don't have it. Employee's phone number, I don't have it. So if I make it explicit cursor, I'll ask the compiler, it is explicit cursor. So if I ask for phone number, it says no, I don't have phone number. So what I'll do, I'll save one phone number. Number.type of size 10. So I'll store the value, some phone number. Now I'll ask the compiler, give me the phone number. It gives, because I have stored it. I'm having the control over the implicit cursor also. So I'm storing the phone number and I'm trying to get it. Or if I ask the compiler, I want Gmail ID. It says no, I don't have. Fine. If you don't have, then wait. What I'll do, I'll store the mail ID. I'll store the mail ID. I have stored the mail ID. Now I'll ask, give me the output for mail ID. It gives. Because I'm having the control. I'm having the control over the context area, and I can perform the action which we want. So that is explicit cursor. So explicit cursors are user-defined or programmer-defined cursors for gaining more control over the context area. An explicit cursor should be defined in the declaration section of the Pl-Sql block. So it is created on a select statement which returns more than one or more, which returns more than one row. So to return the data, either one row or more row, and that should be defined using select statement. So select e-name, comma salary. So either we can give one or more. So this is how explicit works. So we'll see working with explicit cursors, including the following steps. So if we want to use explicit cursors, there are some steps. That means the first step is declaring the cursor for initializing the memory. Because explicit, if it is implicit, only to return the data which are there in the database. If it is explicit, even though we don't have the data in the database, we have to save it first, then we have to retrieve it back. So to perform these explicit cursors, we have to follow some steps. The first step is declaring the cursor for initializing the memory, opening the cursor for allocating the memory, fetching the cursors for retrieving the memory, closing the cursor to release the allocated memory. I repeat, to use explicit cursor, we have to follow some steps. We have to follow 4 steps. The first step is to declare the cursor. Declaring the cursor for initializing the memory, opening the cursor for allocating the memory, fetching the cursors for retrieving the memory, retrieving the data from the memory, closing the cursors to release the allocated memory. One second. And get my hot list. So consider I'm having this space. This space is a context area. So what I'll do first, I'll declare. So what I'll do, declaring the cursor. I want phone number. So I'll ask the compiler, I want to store phone number. So phone number with some data type, number data type, so with some size, and I'll store the value, some value, something like this. So done. I have declared the cursor for initializing the memory. I have initialized the memory, that is some phone number. Done. Second one, I want to open the cursor. Now I have stored this one. I'll ask the compiler, open the cursor. So that I'll ask the compiler, open the cursor. It will open. Now the third one, why I have to open this one? I have to use this to fetch the cursor. So what I'll do, I'll get the output, dbms, I want the phone number. I'll ask the compiler, open the cursor, I want my phone number. So it will give the output. It will get us the output. So I have got the output. So fourth one, I'll close it. Fine. Close the cursor. Because I have got the output what I want. Close it. So declaring. So declaring the cursor. If I want to declare a cursor, first I should send the request. So I'm declaring you please accept my request. Done. So the compiler will take this like initialize this value, the phone number value, it will initialize. So after initializing, it will store the data will be stored in the database. Now I want to retrieve it. As a user, I have to retrieve it. So what I'll do, I'll ask the compiler, please open the cursor. I want to retrieve the data which I have allocated. So I have stored some data in your memory. Now I want to retrieve. So I want to open this one. Please open so that I will fetch it from the first. I have declared the value first. This is the phone number value which I have declared, or Gmail value, any value. I have declared or I have initialized. So I have initialized the value into the context area. Done. So the value will be stored in the context area. Then I'll ask the compiler, please open the door, open the cursor. I want to get this one. Please open. If I open that one, I'll search for the value which I have stored. I'll search for the value which we have initialized. So I'll search, yes, phone number. Now what I'll do, I'll fetch it. I want to get it. I'll return the data from the memory. So this is the data which I want from the memory. I'll get it. I have got that output. Now what I'll do, please close the code. Please close it. Because I've got the output which I want. Close it. So if it is explicit cursor, these are the 4 steps which we have to follow. So as we have seen declaring the cursor for initializing the memory. So declaring the cursor defines the cursor with a name and the associated select statement. Cursor with a name. So cursor name is. So here cursor name. So I want to name. I want to know the phone number, the name of the column, especially name of the column. I want from the cursor, I want e-name, salary, phone number, Gmail address, anything. So I want to get from this cursor by giving the select statement. So we have to use the select statement to get the output. I want phone number, select phone number, select this one, select that one. From where? From this particular cursor. So example, from cursor, from the customers. So from these customers table, select ID, name, address from customers table. So here I'm asking the compiler cursor. From your cursor, from your customers table, I want to select ID. I want ID values, name values, address values from customers table. So give me the output for these 3 from customers table. So it will give the output. Take your ID, take your phone, take your name, and this address also. If I make phone number also, yes, take phone number also. So it will give the output. This is declaring. Therefore, opening the cursor. So I have stored the values into this customers table. Now I have to open. I'll ask the compiler, please open the cursor so that I'll try to fetch ID, name, and address. So open the cursor for allocating the memory says, opening the cursor allocates the memory for the cursor and makes it ready for the fetching. So I have stored some data into the database. Now I have to get it. If I want to get it, I have to open the door. I have to open the door, then I'll get it. It's like, for example, I'm having a two-wheeler in a scooty, and I'll be kept some documents in the like, dicky. If some traffic police asks, show me your documents. So what I'll do, I'll open the door, I'll open the dicky, and I'll fetch the documents. So what I'll do, first I'll be close this. I have initialized the values. I have kept all the documents in the dicky. And if any officer asks me to open this, show me the documents. So what I'll do, I'll open the door. I'll open the cursor by clicking any like buttons in the scooty, or open with the help of key also. I'll open it, and after while I'll open it, because I have already initialized some value for that one. Already I have initialized some memory in that one. So I'll open it. I'll fetch the documents. I'll show the documents to the officer. Then again I'll close it. In the same way, open the cursor for allocating the memory. So open the cursor allocates the memory for the cursor and makes it ready for fetching the rows written by a SQL statement. So whatever the whatever the data we have stored, we have declared or initialized. To use that one, we have to ask the compiler, open it. Please open the cursor. I want to fetch it. I want to fetch it. So I'll ask the compiler, open cursor name. That means open customers table. So customers table will be open. Then fetch the cursor for retrieving the data. So fetching the cursor involves accessing one row at a time. So I want to get one row at a time. So fetch cursor name into variable list. So fetch from the customers table where I want to know, where I want to get customer ID, customer name, and customer address. So this is fetching. I want customer ID. We are getting the output for customer ID, customer name, and customer address. Therefore, closing. Closing. So once we get whatever the data we want, then we'll close it. So closing the cursor says, closing the cursor means releasing the allocated memory. Releasing. That means we don't have any work with that. We'll just leave it as it is. So close cursor name. That means close customs table. So first declare, then open. We have to open the customers table, then fetch the record from the customers table, and after fetching, close the customers table. So following is a complete example for explicit cursor. So what we have here, declare, begin, and end. Declare, begin, and end. So customer ID, I want customer ID from customers table dot ID type. ID type. Customer age from the customers table dot is like emp dot dpt number, dpt dot department number. So from the customers table, I want all the ID types. From the customers table, I want all the age type. From the customers table, I want all the address type. And from the customers table, I want all the name type. Any idea what is type? Attribute type. Any idea? Type. So type is, so attribute type is nothing but it's like similarities, compatibility. We'll say like compatibility. For example, consider I'm having a number, I'm having a character, I'm having a special character, and I'm having what? Because I'm having Roman numbers also. I'm having Roman numbers. What else? I'm having combination of all. So combination of all. So what I'll do, I want to separate the values. I want to separate number values, character values, special character values, Roman values, and alpha numericals. So what I'll do, I want to separate everything. So here number, because I'm having three, A, again special character, row number 2, and like again 4, 3, dollar 3. So now what I'll do, I want to get the number type. All the number types should be stored in this value. So what are the number types? 2, 3, and 4. And if it is character type, so all the characters values should be stored here. So like here, D, E, and C, done. Now here are special characters. So all this here, it will take time if I type. So here in the special character, it will take percentile and dollar. So those values will be stored here. And if it is Roman values, so 1, 2, 3, it will be stored here. And like alphanumericals, G28, N75, or G5, all the values will be stored here. So attribute to type says same data type, which means, yes, so same data type, which means from these customers table, whatever the number of IDs we have, I want all those ID values. Whatever the age we have, all those age values. Address we have, all the age values. So all the address values. And name we have, all the name values. So type, name type. So whatever the number of names we have, all the names should be displayed. Whatever the address we have, all the address should be displayed. Age, all the age. ID, all the IDs. So we'll see from the customers table. So I'm declaring this one. I'm declaring, I want to select ID, age, name, and address from the customers table. So we have seen this one, declaring cursor customers table is select ID, name, address from so and so table. So again, same here, customers, cursor, customers, ID, age, name, address from the customers table. Then after declaring, we have to ask the compiler, open the table, open customers table. So it will open, and here we are using loop because I want all the ID types. So first ID, second ID, third ID, whatever the number of IDs we have, all the ID types will be retrieved first, and then all the age values will be retrieved for next, and then name values, and then address values. So it will start from ID. It will get all the IDs next, all the age next, all the name next, all the address. Then it will stop. So done with opening, done with declaring, opening, then fetch. Where I want to fetch from the customers table, the customer ID, customer age, customer name, and customer address. So we have used loop. So exit when customers are not found. Exit when customers are not found. That means if there is no customer IDs, if it doesn't select any IDs, any age, any name, any address, then exit. If you select, then get me the output. So where I want to get the output, customer ID, customer age, customer name, and customer address. So declare, open, fetch, and close. So close the cursor, close the customer table. What I do? I want from the customers table, I want all the ID values, all the age values, all the address values, and all the name values. So all the ID values, the first one is ID values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Second one is age, all the age values. Third one is address, all the address values. There, no, it's all right. The name, all the name. We have all the data which we have. So all the ID types. So ID types 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So whatever the number of IDs that are there in this customers table, all the IDs values will be retrieved. Age type, all the age will be retrieved. Name type, all the names will be retrieved. Address type, all the address will be retrieved. So this is one. This is the output. Yes. This is the output. So we have got all the ID type, all the age type, all the name type, and all the address type. So this is the output. So here we have read one line, attribute type. Attribute type says the attribute type used in Pl-Sql variable and parameter declaration. So this attribute type is used in variable declaration or parameter, this one, parameter declaration. So this is parameter declaration or variable declaration. So here we will use attribute type because use of this attribute type ensures that type compatibility between the table columns and the variables is maintained, which means type compatibility, all the name type. So for example, we would have seen this in the school or this one. So all the boys will be sitting in one side, girls will be sitting separate side. That means these tables are for boys and these tables are for girls, boys and girls. So even though it is not mentioned, but it is understood that boys should sit at left or right. It depends. It depends on the classroom door, because where the door is, so near the doors, boys will be sitting. If it is left side of the class, if the door is left side of the class, boys will be sitting towards left. If it is right side of the class, boys will be sitting here because they have to rush fast. So in the same way, here type, that means same type. If it is ID type, I want all the ID type, compatibility, same type. If it is name, all the name type. If it is age, and the address, all the address type. So use of this attribute type ensures the type compatibility between the columns and the Pl-Sql variables is maintained. So this is the columns, and this is the variables which you have given, variable declaration and attribute initialization. So yeah, attribute declaration or parameter declaration. So that is passing type. They might ask this one, what is attribute type? They might ask what is attribute type. So this line is enough. So this line is enough. So attribute type is nothing but it ensures that type compatibility, or you can say same type of data, same type of data, or same type of data types. If it is ID, all the ID data type, number, all the number data type, varchar data type, date. So it is used to ensure that type compatibility between the table columns and the variables. So these are the table columns. These are all the table columns, and these are the variables which we have given. So select into statement. So select into statement. So we have read somewhere. Select into statement. Yes, here. So select statement. It says, select statement says, it is the simplest and fastest way to fetch a single row from a table into variables. So select statement. It is the simplest way and fastest way to fetch a single row from a table into variables, which means if I want to retrieve all the employee names, so select employee name, or if it is not employee name, customer name. If I want a customer's name, so select customer's name from customers table. I'll get all the customers name. If it is age, if I make it customer's age, I'll get all the age. So directly we will retrieve everybody's data at a time. So it is the simplest and fastest way to fetch a single row from a table into variables. So from the tables, we will get the output like age, name, address, or any other data based on the table. So we have different tables and different data. So based on the requirement, we have to mention those column names into select statement. So based on that column, based on the columns which we will mention into this select statement, that will be retrieved. So select so and so column names from so and so table. Select into EMP, select into customer department. So we'll get the different type of data from different tables. So that is select statement.